So this COVID-19 has got me, like a lot of people, wanting to eat even more than normal, and junk food mainly. I know I've drank more soft drinks this past week than I probably had in the past 3 months. Right now, I'm really craving chocolate chip cookies. And this is my recipe for chocolate chip cookies. The problem is, it makes 7 dozen. Now, as much as I like to eat, I do not need 7 dozen cookies. I don't need even half that many, but half that many is what I'm going to make. So if I look at this recipe, it calls for 2/3 cup shortening, 2/3 cup butter, 1 cup granulated sugar, that's just your regular white sugar, 1 cup brown sugar, 2 eggs, 2 teaspoons vanilla, 3.5 cups all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of soda, a teaspoon of salt, a cup of chopped nuts, and 2 packages of semi-sweet chocolate chips. Well, like I said, I don't need 7 dozen cookies, which is what that would make. So I'm only going to make half of that. So I've got to figure out what that would be. And thankfully, this recipe is really easy to figure that out on. So 2/3 cup is the same as 1/3 plus 1/3. Or another way of thinking of that is if I had a box cut into 3 pieces and another box cut into 3 pieces, 1/3 of this and 1/3 of that, well, that would be 2/3. I don't need both boxes though, because I'm only going to make half as many cookies. So I'm going to get rid of that. That leaves me with 1/3. So for my recipe, instead of 2/3, I'm just going to use 1/3 cup of shortening. So I'm going to mark that out to remind myself I need 1/3 cup. Well, I also only need 1/3 cup then of butter. Okay, 1. Well, half of 1 is half. So instead of 1 cup of regular sugar, I'm going to use half a cup. Instead of 1 cup of brown sugar, I'm going to use half a cup of brown sugar. I don't need 2 eggs, I just need 1, because half of 2 is 1. Instead of 2 teaspoons of vanilla, I need 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Let's look at that so we can make sure we understand what's going on there. It calls for 2 teaspoons, but we're going to cut that in half, which means we're dividing it by 2. And 2 divided by 2 equals 1. Or another way of thinking of that is 2 times 1/2, which if you put that in your calculator, remember 1/2 is 0.5, you're going to get 1. The 2's kind of cancel out, leaving you with just the 1. All right, so that's where we get 1 egg, 1 teaspoon. Now it calls for 3 cups of all-purpose flour. Well, instead of 3 cups, I only want half of that. So 3 divided by 2, because dividing by 2 is the same as taking half. So 2 goes into 3, and I'll make this like this so we can do it. So this is the same as 3 divided by 2, because remember, a fraction is just a division problem. So 3 divided by 2. 2 goes into 3 one whole time. 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract 3, take away 2 is 1. Well, I'm cooking, so I can't use a remainder. I need to know how much I'm actually going to use. So I'm going to put a decimal point and a decimal point and a 0. And I'm going to bring down that 0. 2 goes into 10 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. And now I've got no remainder. I also have a cat on my counter, so I will have to wash everything down here in a minute. Good thing I'm only cooking for me and not for anybody else. Okay, so 1 1/2. 1.5 is the same as 1 1/2. So back to my recipe, I'm going to use 1 1/2 cups of all-purpose flour. And half a teaspoon of soda, half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of nuts. I happen to have some pecans, so I'm going to make pecan chocolate chip cookies or chocolate chip pecan cookies. And the chocolate chips, I kind of just throw in as many as I want. I don't actually follow that because I like my chocolate chips. So now I know what I need to use for my recipe, and I will show you my ingredients here on the counter. I've got everything laid out here, and now that I know how much of what I need, I'm going to start making some cookies. So something I've got to mention while we're talking about this is, like I said, the original recipe calls for 7 dozen. Well, that's great, but how many's in a dozen? How many cookies is that? Well, we should know that 1 dozen equals 12. So a dozen eggs is 12 eggs, a dozen cookies is 12 cookies, a dozen donuts would be 12 donuts. So 1 dozen is the same as 12. So since this makes 7 dozen, that's the same as 7 times 12, or 12 times 7. So 7 times 2 is 14, carry 1, 7 times 1 is 7, plus 1 is 84. And like I said, I definitely do not need 84 cookies. So we cut the recipe in half. So instead of 84 cookies, we made the equivalent of cutting that in half, which is the same as dividing by 2. So 2 goes into 8 4 times. 4 times 2 is 8. Nothing left over there, but we've got to bring down this 4. 2 goes into 4 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4. Nothing left over. So the recipe that we made would make 42 regular cookies. Wow, that's a lot of cookies. And that would be normal size cookies, not these huge, giant cookies that we actually made. So on this pan, where we have 1 dozen, 12 jumbo cookies, that is equivalent to 42 regular size cookies. So 12 jumbos equal to 42 regular cookies. Dang. And they look so good. And I can smell them. They're still too hot to eat. So if 12 of these is equal to 42 regular cookies, I wonder how much 1 would be. How could I figure that out? 1 of these cookies, and we know the same size because I used the disher, so 1 of these cookies is the same as how many regular size cookies? Oh, I know. I can divide both sides by 12. So if I want to know how much just 1 of these cookies is, I'm going to divide both sides and figure it out. So 1 jumbo cookie is equal to 42 divided by 12. Well, I don't know how to do that off the top of my head. Let's see. 42 divided by 12. It's going to be a remainder number. We're going to have a decimal or a fraction. We'll make it a fraction. I know that 12 goes into 48, but I don't have 48 here. I've got less than 48. I know that 12 goes into 36, so 36 is as close as I'm going to get. So 12 times 3 is 36, and I'm going to subtract that. So 6 from 12 is 6. That's 0. So 1 of these cookies is equal to 3 6/12 cookie. Well, 6/12, that can reduce to 1/2. So 1 jumbo cookie is the same as 3 1/2 regular cookies. So I'm thinking I need to make these last 12 days because even 3 1/2 cookies a day is a lot of cookies that I don't need. But hopefully they're delicious. You guys take care, and we'll do another lesson on another topic on another day. Have a great one. Bye.